DeFi, like we're solving finance, right? But
Hmm.
the thing is, after you solve finance, you can empower and solve and do a lot of cool things, and that's what Aave is. We're not just like solving one thing that you can earn yield. Our goal is like we could actually empower all the communities that are on Ethereum or whatever they're existing.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for this video that we're going to be recording today. We are doing a high
So
level overview of everything you need to know about DeFi, and I honestly could not think of a better person to bring on to really help break all of this down, and that is Stani Kulechov, the founder and CEO of Aave, which is one of the main building blocks of the entire DeFi space and also one of the top in terms of market cap. So, Stani, thank you so much for joining me today.
thanks for having me here, Leo. Pleasure to be here again.
So, there is a lot to navigate in the world of DeFi. Obviously, there is a lot of opportunity, but with opportunity comes risk. And so, before we dive into all of that, I'm excited to talk about how people can maybe stay a little bit safer in the DeFi space. But first, let's just start by literally defining like what is a DeFi token and what makes it DeFi, what makes it different than, let's say, an altcoin that maybe they've seen, like, I don't know, like Litecoin, Monero, like something like that.
Yeah, totally. So, first of all, usually like in decentralized finance in DeFi, you have these so-called governance tokens, and the idea with the governance token is that you can participate in governing a particular protocol. The same way as, for example, you have community governing the Bitcoin protocol on Ethereum, for example, there might be DeFi protocols, and you govern with the tokens. That means that uh, the code base of that protocol can't be changed just that easily, arbitrary. But the community decides together and they vote on the changes, and that gives the power for the token. And then there's the underlying protocol itself where you have risk and so forth. So all of these protocols, they're practically code, and they have their own technical risks and also like other kind of risks.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what people can do when they're first getting started. And there's a lot of different words out there that people may have heard, like liquidity mining and yield farming and liquidity pools and staking. And there's just all of these things out there. So, in terms of how people can interact with these DeFi protocols and not only potentially like buy a DeFi token because they're excited about the project, but also use these tools to kind of put their money to work for them, kind of walk us through, like, if someone's kind of new, what are some of the first things they could look at?
Yeah, so the easiest thing is that if you have cryptographic assets on, for example, on Ethereum, where a lot of DeFi ecosystem is, you can just deposit them into a protocol to earn yield. So that's the easiest thing. So for example, in Aave protocol, what's typically you can do, you can deposit, let's say, Ethereum, wrapped Bitcoin, or stable coins, and just see them grow. That's like how easy it is. And then you can do other kind of things. You can borrow, but it's more about people putting their assets into work.
So, in terms of like where people go, obviously, a lot of people might use Uniswap, but like, what are some platforms where people might actually interact with some of these DeFi tokens?
Yeah, for example, Uniswap, you could provide liquidity there. Uniswap, Balancer, SushiSwap. So the idea is that you kind of like provide two token pairs, and if you have a portfolio, so you stake your portfolio into and into that protocol, and you provide liquidity, which means that you place assets there, and then other people are buying, selling, and you get yield there. You can use lending protocols, for example, like something like Aave, or you could use something like Curve, where you can do the same as Uniswap, but for like stable coins. So there's quite a lot of options these days, and actually there's even aggregators. So you don't need to shop too much. You could just select some sort of aggregator that rebalances behalf of you and finds you the best yield opportunities. And there the risk part is important because not every protocol has the same risk.
Well, that is a perfect segue to talk about risk, to talk about safety, maybe how people can evaluate projects and coins that they're looking at. And I think that really is kind of the meat and potatoes of this conversation here. And so, what are some of the things that people should maybe look for when they're deciding if they want to, interact with and invest in a particular token? Like, should they be looking at if it's been audited? How do you know if the audit was real? How do you, like, there's just so many factors. Kind of walk us through if there's maybe almost like a checklist of things to look for.
Yeah. So, well, first thing is that usually like the biggest protocols are like big for a particular reason, which is that people trust those protocols, and because they trust, there might be just the fact that the team might take care of the security quite well. So the thing about DeFi is that everyone can build products, which is very cool. You can sandbox new things, you can innovate, but at the same time, there's products that people build for institutional kind of like audience target, and like the security is important in the sense that once the protocol code has been finished, independent auditors who are reviewing the smart contract code, they basically go through the protocol code and kind of try to find like if there's some sort of issues in the business logic, the technical implementation. And for example, the industry standard is to have one or two audits. The Aave version 2 protocol, which we launched on December last year, we had like 5 independent audits, and then there's kind of like a mathematical verification where we test mathematically that whatever we implemented is actually true. This is very technical, but end of the day, like you could, I would go the same way, like kind of trusting the brands if you are not technical enough, and reading things and looking like how the community reacts there, and so.
That's a really good point about even just looking at the community and looking at those
Yeah.
interactions, because that's something that I kind of have a question about as well, is like, if you're not a developer and if you're not super technical, like, yes, maybe it's been audited,
Yeah.
but you can't really look at the code yourself and understand it if that's not a language that you speak, right? And so,
Exactly.
so is maybe, because you mentioned you guys have been audited 5 times, which is a lot more than I think most, like, is looking at the number of audits kind of a good indicator, or what are some of the best ways for someone who can't really inspect that code on their own to maybe have a little bit more faith or comfort in something?
Yeah, I don't think like the number of audits, and it's not the best thing, because kind of like you
Mm.
could have multiple audits, but end of the day, the security is how the team can build and how
Mm-hmm.
complex the system is. It's kind of like an overall thing in some extent, like kind of how long the protocol has been on the main Ethereum network. Let's say how much liquidity it has, what kind of backers and what kind of background the team members have, and the community, because obviously you want to participate something where like has a vibrant community, and it's a project that is serious in one sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like it's hard to say anything but like concrete, but it's just like an overall like depends on many things. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a funny answer, because like uh it's just like there's so many components there
Right.
in end of the day.
No, that makes sense. And so, one of the things I wanted to chat about a little bit as well was this whole idea of more established projects versus the kind of low, market cap gem that people are hunting for. People seem to like to chase the shiny objects, the penny stock that will go crazy. And so, what are your kind of thoughts on people like looking at maybe like shifting their mindset to look at some of these projects, obviously like Aave, that have more longevity in the market, slash on the other side of that, if someone is really heart set on searching for these low cap gems, do you have any tips for them?
Well, the thing is, like, I recommend to go into the product and think about like what the product is, what the
Mm-hmm.
protocol does, and what it solves. End of the day, like in one way, like Aave tries to solve like finance, but
Mm-hmm.
once you solve finance, like you could solve other cool things, and you could do other cool things and empower different economies. For example, the NFT creator community that is going now it's quite vibrant now in Ethereum, and I think it's just like end of the day thinking like looking at like how much value that particular protocol has. And Aave has, for
Mm-hmm.
example, 5 to 6 billion worth of value in the smart contracts actually, that the governance community governance, and it's something like substantial. And I think it's quite unique.
So speaking of Aave, I do have a few more DeFi questions I want to dig into, but I obviously want to give you kind of a chance here just to cover what Aave is for someone that's watching this that maybe isn't familiar. Can you give us a high level overview of what Aave is?
Yeah. So it's basically a protocol, which means a set of smart contracts running on Ethereum. And the use case is if you have cryptographic assets, you can come to the protocol, deposit them, and see those assets grow in balance. So you're earning interest in the protocol, and you're earning because other users are borrowing. You can borrow yourself as well, and that's the beauty of the system. Kind of like you have this pooled like a pool of liquidity where you can deposit and even withdraw anytime you want because there's excess liquidity. And that's like what Aave is. And of course, it's governed by the community. It's decentralized governance, and that's what the whole DeFi space is all about.
So one thing that I'm curious about because I don't feel like I hear it discussed often, but security and storage of DeFi tokens. And so in more of the kind of like legacy coins, right? Like Bitcoin, Ethereum, there's obviously a lot of talk about make sure you get a hardware wallet, maybe even get full offline cold storage kind of wallets. Now, when it comes to DeFi tokens, I think a lot of people probably keep them in their MetaMask or on Uniswap or, those kinds of situations, which may not be as, as fully kind of like locked down as a hardware wallet. If someone has a DeFi token that they're wanting to hang on to for a longer period of time and are thinking about security and storage, like what are some of the best ways that people can keep their DeFi tokens safe?
I think the same way as you would keep Ethereum safe or Bitcoin, like having a hardware wallet. The cool part about MetaMask, I don't like MetaMask like in terms of like it's not the most seamless user experience, but the cool part about MetaMask is that you can connect your ledger into it. So you can store your assets in a ledger and still interact with DeFi at the same time. So that's pretty cool. I will do that. This is what I do actually. Like yesterday, I was uh, like I mean, that's how even if I bid on NFTs or let's say I deposit into Aave, and I was yesterday doing the both. So I just like plug in Ledger into MetaMask, and I think it's I've been always doing that since I think now 4 years or something. So it works for me.
Yeah, I do that as well. And it was really easy to set up for someone that's watching this. I'm sure there's tutorials on YouTube. I think it took like 30 seconds. It was pretty easy to set up and do.
Yeah.
You just have to enable smart contracts on your hardware wallet.
Yeah.
Remember
Whenever
to do
I change
that.
my ledger, I have the issue. Like I forget like why isn't this working? And
I know, I've had that too. so so I kind of want to circle almost back to the beginning again and talk about some of these various tools that people can be using. Can we dive a little bit deeper into, like, let's say if someone wants to give us like a high level overview of what like a liquidity pool is, what like how people can be earning yields. Like, can you dive a little deeper on like, think of like a mindset of someone that's pretty new and they're trying to wrap their head around it?
yeah, so I guess it's something like where you just like leave your funds. If you think of it like real world, you just leave your funds into a like a basket, and like I don't know, you have like apples, right? You put them into basket, and other people come and take those apples and eat them, and then they have to bring more apples there, and whatever they bring, like those apples are sliced in a way that all the depositors get their own piece, like share of those apples, like the additional. Or you could imagine that those apples will grow in quantity. So that's like what happens. Your assets that you're depositing, perhaps Bitcoin, Ethereum, or stable coins, they will increase in balance. So those apples will grow. So it's kind of the same thing. Like you're getting interest because other people are borrowing from the protocol, and they usually
Right.
put a collateral there. So it's basically there's risk management involved, and there's actually like if you go to docs.aave.com, there's risk section you can read, and if you're very interested in how how funds are secured and so forth.
Perfect. I like the apple analogy. That's really fun. so, So, as someone who is really a leader in the DeFi space, where do you see this segment of the crypto industry really going in the next year, the next two? Obviously, DeFi itself has been a massive innovation and boom within the crypto industry. And where do you kind of see the trajectory of that going?
Yeah, I think like in overall, like not just DeFi, but thinking of the whole like cryptocurrency industry,
Hmm.
I think it's becoming in one side more like institution, like there's more institution traction all the time. Like even like there's a lot of traction at Aave. We talk to institutions on like not just daily basis, but multiple times a day. That's why I was like late for this this interview as well. But at the same time, I think we start to onboard more users, not in a way that they will deposit fiat and convert that fiat into, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum and whatnot, stable coins. But actually, we will be onboarding people by working in the space, working for
Mm.
protocols, decentralized protocols, and also creating things. The creator economy is now growing quite a lot in Ethereum, like let's say cryptographic art,
Hmm.
and you could create something, and then we and be part of the economy when someone pays you for that particular art piece that someone else, like someone buys from you. That's like the most coolest way to come into the space, or just work for the protocol. I think those spaces will be way cooler than exchanging dollars to crypto.
I agree. And not to mention that, but I feel like the NFT community might be one of the like friendliest, coolest places to like hang out in the whole cryptoverse
Yeah,
too.
and it's way more like it's way more like a exciting. There's a lot of
Mm,
cool
hmm.
things that people are doing. You see the creativity. But yesterday I was actually when I was building one piece of work, what was interesting that I realized at that moment that you know what this actually does, the net result is that there will be more and more creators in the community, more
Mm.
people involved with art, music, and you will have very diverse community end of the day. Like that's the net result actually, because they will come into the ecosystem by creating those
Mm.
pieces. So that's like that's pretty cool.
That's a great point. It seems like the barrier to entry and understanding of what's happening is a lot easier when you're like, oh, be part of this cool art community versus be part of this financial revolution,
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
thing.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Like in DeFi, like we're solving finance, right? But
Hmm.
the thing is, after you solve finance, you can empower and solve and do a lot of cool things, and
Mm.
that's what Aave is. We're not just like solving one thing that you can earn yield. Our goal is like we could actually empower all the communities that are in on Ethereum or whatever they're existing.
So, speaking of NFTs and digital art, there's been quite the explosion of excitement with NFTs and Aave. Can you tell us a little bit about what all is happening there?
Yeah, so I think like one of the biggest things now is the Aave ecosystem. So it's one of the projects in Aave ecosystem. They have own ecosystem. Like, and the thing is that what's happening there is that Aave are practically this kind of like pixelized ghost collectibles that you can buy a portal, and when you buy the portal, you get this different kinds of pixelized ghost collectibles. But you need to unlock those goals. You need to earn interest on Aave.
Hmm.
So we're connecting DeFi and an NFT ecosystem together. And once you unlock them, it means that you could actually use them some way. So someone else can come and just create another game and then invite those other coaches to that game. Any developer could do that. Like there's no restriction there. And this is like when I say like there's Aave ecosystem and Aave ecosystem, like it's like layer of layer what you could
Mm.
actually do. And to compare something like Fortnite, if you buy skins on Fortnite, what happens is that Fortnite owns those skins because if the server goes down, you lose
Hmm.
your skins and you lose your V-Bucks as well. But with NFTs, like you actually have the ownership of whatever you're buying, because it's in a decentralized. The value is stored, the metadata in a decentralized system like blockchain. That's like the difference.
No, that's a great point to bring up and talk about digital ownership of assets within games, is a whole nother level. So it's pretty cool to see how you guys are combining DeFi with art with kind of like this gamification as well. This whole kind of overarching ecosystem. So I'm kind of curious to dive into that a little bit more. So let's say someone is brand new to Aave, and they are watching this interview and they're curious and they want to dive in more after this. So walk us through, if you were new to Aave, like how you might interact with Aavegotchi and like how that might all work.
Yeah, so the simplest way is that let's say to unlock those Aavegotchis, of course, like you need to deposit to Aave and earn. So like the actual idea of Aavegotchis was the idea that like how you could educate people to save more. And the idea was to gamify that experience. And Jesse and Dan, who was leading the Aavegotchi project, they came with the idea like, well, let's use NFTs and reward the users for. And those NFTs, they have different kind of rarity. So some Aavegotchi has like a mustache, or some
Right.
Aavegotchi. There's even one Aavegotchi like with that looks exactly like me. So and and
Yes.
yeah, and probably like that's like also they have like variables, consumables, and different trades. So it's there's sort of things you could do, in that sense. And the idea of Aavegotchi is that you just not earn in Aave, but you could earn in other protocols later as well. So
Mm.
it's very inclusive, like the whole the way that they have been building it. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, they're launching pretty soon. I'm not sure about the date, but pretty soon. I mean, I
Uh,
know about the date, but I know if I can
if
reveal
you
it
can
or not.
say it, yeah. It's okay. Well, coming soon is what we'll leave it
Yeah,
at. Well, I will definitely link to all of this below. So anyone that's watching this interview can go check you guys out, go check Aave out, everything that you guys are building. Stani, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on my show and just really give this high level overview of DeFi. I think a lot of people are going to find it really helpful that are kind of newer to the space and still trying to wrap their head around it. So, Stani, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
thank you, Leo, for having me.